Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to panel discussion on maximizing organizational potential in uncertainty and supporting Poland's economic recovery and sustainable growth by investing in the skilled talent and right competencies. I'm joined by amazing experts representing institutions and organizations we're closely collaborated with through the decade. And by decade, you heard me right, decade. It's been 10 years since the launch of the CIMA branch in Poland. It's been quite a journey for us. Let us hear from Barry Melanson, CEO at the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants.
Although I cannot be with you today, it is my extreme pleasure to be with you through these video means. It's a crazy world we live in, and unfortunately the travel and the relationship building doesn't really allow us to be together. You, however, are about to participate in a great discussion with our prominent guests on the ways to maximize organizational potential in uncertain times. And of course, maybe even more importantly, to support Poland's economic recovery and sustainable growth. You know, COVID-19 has taught us that one event can change everything. And maybe because of the resurgence of COVID, we're learning it's maybe more than one event. But it was a big reset for our world. And your country has the opportunity to seize this moment by really differentiating itself through its talent, its developing finance skills for the future, and building on its reputation for excellence. There's also another reason we're here today, and that is to celebrate 10 years since we opened the CIMA office in Warsaw in 2011 as our hub for Europe. I'll talk a little bit about the fact that things have changed for CIMA too, because we're now in association jointly, AICPA and CIMA, but 10 years is a long time. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jakub and his team for the hard work and all the efforts to bring the European community together, to grow some very important and key metrics, to raise the employability of students and members, and to build recognition of the CGMA designation in the region. I've been to a great city and country a couple times, and the power that you have in really embracing management accounting, I think, cannot be overstated. In fact, to drive resilience, we must have a growing pool of qualified management accounting professionals with the skills to help guide business and public services through the very difficult and uncertain times ahead. I want to congratulate you all on the achievements and strategic alliances and really important partnerships that have been maintained and extended throughout the last decade. Just to mention the two most recent ones, in March of this year, CIMA and the Association of Business Service Leaders signed a letter of intent to support the growth and increase the competitiveness of a modern business service sector in Poland and Central and Eastern Europe. And last year, CIMA in Poland reached a milestone in its development in the region, thanks to the MOU signed with the Polish Chamber of Statutory Auditors. This agreement focused on developing the competencies of professionals providing audit and advisory services in Poland and raising their professional qualifications. This also opens a possibility of strategic relations with other auditors in Europe. Since its inception, the CIMA office and presence in Poland has worked closely with top employers to ensure it remains the first choice when recruiting financially trained business leaders. Today, our global CGMA designation, as evidenced by the holders in Poland, are widely employed in public, private, and not-profit sectors. And your positioning in Poland as a leader for us in Europe is very critical. Now, I said I'd come back and talk a little bit about even CIMA's changing role, the combination of AICPA and CIMA into what we call the association. And sort of in a nice symmetry, we're celebrating our 5th anniversary in that environment. And in June, the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, which is our name, turned 5 in our efforts throughout the world. Back in 2016, the two organizations, AICPA and CIMA, members voted overwhelmingly in favor of creating this new association. In fact, almost 90% in both organizations. And looking back over the past 5 years, I feel a tremendous pride in how far we've come and what the association has become, the world's most influential body of accountants and financial professionals. Together, AICPA and CIMA have more than 225 years of distinguished histories and are working together with countless stakeholders from around the globe. And it has been a truly incredible journey. In fact, we have 650,000 members globally, and we interact with governments and leaders throughout the world. If we've learned anything in 2020 and now in 2021, it's that we're ready for anything, even truly the unimaginable. Quick to adapt, we pivoted with agility and resilience. And as we've always done throughout our history as a profession, we harnessed that resilient spirit and passed it on to our businesses, employers, global economies, and society as a whole. We were very vocal in the things that needed to be done in various countries, and people listened to what we had to say. Now, as we look forward to a bright future, we really move forward with an even deeper resolve. There's still a lot of work ahead of us. Still a long way to go in recovery for businesses, countries, and even a profession. But we will persevere. Because while change will never stop, and in fact will be quicker, we can ride the momentum of our successes and continue powering trust, opportunity, and prosperity, no matter the circumstances. We prove we can pivot, learn, and adapt. And together, we'll thrive. I look forward to the future and to continuing to transform the global accounting and finance profession. It is critically important that our profession does transform to every corner of the globe. And as we are now in a world reimagined, a world forever different from the COVID-19 environment, you've heard me say we won't recognize the profession in 5 years. The change is going to be phenomenally going forward. It was going to happen anyway, but it has sped up immensely. So I'll leave you with a happy anniversary to the CIMA office and presence in Poland, and to us as the association for 10 years and 5 years. All the best to our partners and stakeholders, and I look forward to seeing you in the future, and here's certainly to many, many more years.
Thank you, Barry. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. First and foremost, welcome our honorary guest, Paul Ash, FCMA, CGMA, President of CIMA, who is with us here in Warsaw on site today. Welcome, Paul. Warm welcome to Ms. Barbara Misterska-Dragan, President of the National Council of Statutory Auditors, Statutory Advisor and member of PIBR, Polish Chamber of Statutory Auditors. But Ms. Barbara is joining with us online today. Warm welcome to James Hughes, Minister Counselor for Economic Affairs at the British Embassy Warsaw, who is also joining us online. Ms. Agnieszka Jankowska, Government Affairs and Public Policy Member of Management Board at General Electric Poland and Board Member of AmCham Poland, who is with us on site today. Mr. Paweł Panci, Managing Director, Strategy and Partnerships, Association of Business Service Leaders, ABSL. Paweł is joining us online as well. And last but not least, Professor Krzysztof Kozłowski, PhD, Vice Rector and Lecturer at the Warsaw School of Economics, SGH, with us today on site. I will kick off with the first question to our honorary guest, Paul Ash. Obviously, one of the topics we are discussing today is maximizing organization potential in uncertainty. So we have seen that during the pandemic, some of the companies not only survived, but thrived. And the question is, how did they manage to do it? And in what ways the finance profession helped in that process?
Thank you for that question. Firstly, But firstly, I'd like to echo what our Chief Executive said and congratulate Poland on your 10 years anniversary. You have not only adapted but thrived throughout that whole period, so well done on that. But coming to your particular question on how companies have done well in this period and have not only survived but thrived. Of course, a lot of sectors have been hit very differently by the pandemic. You know, if you're in the hospitality sector, you're in the travel sector, you couldn't help but, you know, suffer through this process. But even those companies, those businesses we're seeing now come through this, there have been some businesses that have really thrived. And they've done this through not just sitting there and waiting for the pandemic to be over, for things to return to normal, but they've invested. They've invested in technologies, they've invested in their cybersecurity, and they've invested in their people and the well-being of their people. And I think that you will see that, in particular, in terms of how people have been treated during this pandemic, you will see those companies that have treated their people well build much more sustainable businesses in the future. But there's no question that we can see some really common themes in terms of investment in technology, investment in people, investment in new markets, and that is paying dividends already for those companies.
Referring to the finance professionals and their role in that process, what would you say about that, the finance professionals and their role in that?
Well, we enjoy a unique position in businesses. We're at the center of business, and so we've always been used to doing the business plans, doing forecasting, reforecasting, developing strategies, building models, and so on, and scenario planning. So this is something that came naturally to our profession, and there's no question in my mind that businesses, again, that have thrived throughout this period, adapted and thrived, have done so with the help of our membership, and we, as an institution, the CIMA institution, and the association, which I'm chair of this year, have also invested in our members in terms of our syllabus, in terms of being able to continue to provide our syllabus online and our examination online, and we haven't missed a heartbeat in that process, and that's something that I'm extremely proud of.
Thank you, Paul. One more follow-up question on this, talking about the finance professionals' role and the professionals' role in the economy and primarily the businesses and employers. But how about thinking about the government, the Polish economy and the economies themselves, the wider spectrum of their influence on the economy? What would you say their role could be for the kind of wider purpose, which is the economy?
Well, of course, many governments, including the Polish government, have provided a great deal of support for businesses and people throughout the pandemic. And our members, you know, are working to help use that investment to best effect, to provide efficiencies and effectiveness in that business so that that investment is not wasted. And the other thing that I will say, and that's something that's dawned on me, I don't think there will ever be a post-COVID period. And that means that the governments are going to have to stay, and regulators are going to have to stay on top of this process in terms of making sure that we invest, bringing also the banks and those that provide finance and the regulators on board to make sure that everybody's on the same page. But again, what our members are doing in this area and what we're doing as an institution and association, I'm again extremely proud of. This really has been a great success story for us in what has been an extraordinarily difficult time.
Thank you so much, Paul. Let's move on to our next panelist, and I will now direct a question to James Hughes. Talking about driving the competitiveness of the economy, can you give us some examples of the best practices that you've seen in the UK in recent years that you think would apply in the Polish context? James, over to you.
Thank you very much. And first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, and congratulations to CIMA Polska on reaching your 10th anniversary. Most people normally have parties and cake to celebrate an anniversary. You've decided to have a panel session, which is great. And it's a great pleasure to be part of that this afternoon. Just building on what Paul has just said in terms of the resilience and the creativity and the innovation that we've seen over the last 18 months or so because of the pandemic. We've seen various examples in the United Kingdom, in Poland, and across the world of people adapting in line with the theme of today's session in order to thrive and making the most of the opportunities as well as the challenges that the last 18 months have provided. And I think in both the UK and Poland, we have seen both countries making best use of their fundamental strengths in terms of their economy, in terms of how their business and the economy is working. Now, you will be aware, of course, that the UK has been hailed consistently as a world leader in terms of competitiveness, in terms of global competitiveness indices. And of course, UK businesses, the UK economy has had to adapt and has had to face head-on the challenges of the last 18 months in the COVID pandemic. But in those assessments, which still, I think, play out notwithstanding the pandemic, and also in our engagement that we've had with international partners and business, several core themes come through, which I think serve us well in terms of looking at Poland's journey in competitiveness. I mean, firstly, in the UK sense, we obviously benefit from a world-class science and research base. We have the most productive science base in the G7. We are top in key measures globally in terms of research quality. And I think in Poland, there's a lot here to build on too in terms of science and research. The Polish research community has great strengths in terms of research excellence in a number of sectors, including biological sciences and some more basic scientific research. Where the UK also does particularly well in terms of the science and research space is the strength in exploiting that research through our system of incubators and accelerators. And we're working through our collaboration at government to government level with our Polish partners to understand better how we can best support that element going forward. The UK also benefits from high-level skills in our workforce and skills development, lifelong skills development through our education system. And as Paul has said a moment ago, over the last 18 months, a number of businesses and of course the government have also been doing this in terms of investing in skills development of our people and making the most of the opportunity of a need, an enforced adaptation in how we work to reap the benefits of that. And if you look at Poland, to compare back to Poland, and actually as part of Central Europe more generally, Poland has a very strong pipeline of STEM talent. Poland, as part of the Visegrad 4 region, but more generally across Central Europe, has that very strong pipeline of talent coming through the university system in STEM subjects, and is making really good use of that. Another theme in terms of UK competitiveness is the UK's openness to international trade. We consistently fare well in ease of doing business rankings in terms of the ease of setting up and running businesses in the United Kingdom. And a number of businesses from other partners, including Poland, have recognised over a number of years the potential for the UK as a springboard for further global growth. And in part, that's because of the flexibility and the effectiveness that people see, that businesses see in the UK's regulatory and competition regimes. And in terms of Poland's business environment, I think there are a number of strengths here. I mean, as illustrated by the fact that, of course, Poland, with the exception of the last 18 months, had almost 3 decades of uninterrupted economic growth, a great level of dynamism in the economy over the last 3 decades. But in terms of the ease of doing business, in terms of the business environment, there are a number of positive, but there are a number of areas that I think we'll come on to, where I think Poland is identifying where they could be even better. In the UK system, again, flexibility in the labour market has been cited as a key strength in the UK, and strength also in terms of our inward investment pipeline, and our investment figures are very strong in terms of Europe and in terms of global indices as well. Then the final point I wanted to make was about innovation, particularly when it comes to digital and tech. And again, this builds on Paul's previous answer. The United Kingdom is 4th in the World Intellectual Property Office's Global Innovation Index, and we have a proud history in the UK of digital innovation, and we've always been a champion of new innovative business models and solutions. For example, the UK is the first global financial sector that pioneered a regulatory fintech sandbox, open banking and payments infrastructure. In 2017, the United Kingdom government launched a UK digital strategy, which set out how the UK will build on its strengths to grow a world-leading digital economy that works for everyone. And that strategy is being refreshed in the light of the last 18 months and recent developments later this year. Starting this year, the UK government is investing £2.5 billion in the National Skills Fund to help adults to train and gain those valuable skills that they need to improve their job prospects across the economy, and in particular in digital and tech, to support the immediate economic recovery from the pandemic, to build back better, as we term it, and to anticipate and build those future skills needs by boosting the supply of skills that employers require now and in the future. So I think there are a number of things that the UK have benefited from in terms of our own competitiveness. I think, as I've said, there are a number of things that Poland already do really well in terms of its own competitiveness, and where they continue to work to do even better.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you for sharing those best practices with us today. And let me now just turn on to Agnieszka. And Agnieszka, from perspective of delivering the long-lasting economic recovery and ensuring greater business resilience and drive sustainable growth in the post-COVID world, Poland needs to have a long-term strategy to tackle structural issues such as widening skills gap primarily. AmCham is a leading voice for international investors in Poland. What is your perspective on this, and how important is upskilling, reskilling, growth mindset, and entrepreneurial spirit in building and thriving a successful Polish economy?
I think that years before pandemia, we already were in this so-called VUCA world. And after the pandemia, it's even more important to put all investments into lifelong learning, and especially not only in the skills, like skills that you may learn during your educational path, but also so-called soft skills. So when we are speaking about upgrading our skills or reskilling, it's very important, but equally important is the whole educational system. And I guess not only in case of Poland, but in any other country, we should start from the very beginning, from the primary school up to the university, with special focus on secondary education, and especially technical secondary education, because this is what we see as a big gap for our companies, especially in the industrial sector, that there is a very huge gap in reaching out people who can really do maybe not basic, but some more advanced technical jobs, but not necessarily after 5-year technical education. So this is one thing. Second thing is that today we need to be more flexible. We need to be more open-minded. And even if we say today that in 5 years' time, we will have such a type of job that will be needed for companies, 1 year later, it will be something different. So I guess that the key factor is to have a dialogue, open dialogue and frequent dialogue, not only when there is a problem, but really over the time with academia, with organizations that are supporting upskilling, but also with companies like those that are members, not only of AmCham, any other companies, like small and medium-sized enterprises. They are also very, very important in that dialogue with the government. And, try to foresee what are the mega trends, where we can really have our advantage as Poland. Somebody said here that we have high STEAM education. That's true, but still, I found such a data of Digital Economy and Society Index that 40% of Europeans, they don't know basic digital skills. So there is a huge gap, not only throughout European Union. So I guess that we need to put into upskilling, reskilling, together with academia, together with the governments and supporting organizations, but also we as people, we need to invest in our education and be open for a change, because this will be the only constant thing that will be in the future.
Thank you so much, Agnieszka, for sharing your perspective. Let us move on to Paweł. Paweł is joining us online. Paweł, ABSL is a strong advocate for strengthening Poland's critical assets, such as skilled talent pool, and actively engages in this area. Just as an example, as part of our joint project, the Skills of the Future Academy 2021-2026, we are striving to identify competency gaps in the modern business services sector, and we will work on implementing world-class solutions to address them. But Paweł, tell us why it is so important, and what are those skills of the future actually?
Thank you very much, and once again, congratulations to CIMA for being in Poland for 10 years and part of that period working with ABSL. Thank you very much, Jakub. Agnieszka has already mentioned, James, everyone was mentioning the fact that we are talking about people. Of course, there is a second aspect of technology, but right now, I don't think we are that technologically enhanced that we can relate everything to the technology, to machines, to artificial intelligence. So when thinking about people, Agnieszka already mentioned it, it is the skills of the future. It is thinking about the education. And right now, ABSL is an example that we were hiring people previously with the university degree. Now, with the scarcity of talent, we have to look for alternative solutions. The alternative solutions may be looking for different pools of the talent, but also looking at these people that right now are with us, and we may not be able to offer them the jobs of the future if we do not upskill them and reskill them. And it is the responsibility of the responsible and socially aware business to be and think with and for the people. So when trying to plan the future, we see that we are and we will be based on the talents, and we have to grow the talents to help them on one hand get into the future life from the academy or from dedicated secondary education, because we are now just learning that not everyone has to go to the university. There is the future, and there is happiness of being a person that works without a higher educational degree, and there is nothing wrong with that. So making sure that these people recognize their future, recognize their vocation, we are the place that tells them, look, this is what your future may look like. And if there is anything missing, we will work with you to upskill or reskill you. COVID has proven the fact that we may not be, as James mentioned, the innovators like in UK, but people in Poland are great improvers. We have been able to go from work in the office to work from home or work from anywhere in 3.2 days, 89% of our people. We were able to acquire 3,000, not 300, but 3,000% of certain processes that were not able to be provided because of the scarcity of electronic connection or Wi-Fi in other parts of the world. We were able to do it. But in order to enhance these people, we have to think about them, thinking about the changes that will happen in the future. So upskilling, reskilling, sometimes we think about looking down into people that we may not be noticing yet and trying to plan the future based on the talents that we see that are with us, around us, but maybe will be with us in 5 years. We cannot afford not to think in 5 years term.
Thanks so much for sharing your perspective, Paweł. Obviously, in terms of the skills of the Future Academy project, there is still work to do, but is there anything you would want to share with the audience in terms of what we are trying to achieve with that project?
We are trying to analyze the ability of people or the availability of the hard and soft skills with the people. And sometimes when we talk to the rectors, telling them, Your Magnificence, we see that the graduates from your university are not able to work in teams, are not able to cope with the challenges. We should think how to change that. And they tell us these are the skills that should be taught in the kindergarten, not at the university. So we have to analyze and see where the missing parts of the education are. And the Upskilling and Reskilling Academy may be viewed narrowly as something that will be teaching specific skills, but it also is to make people think broadly, not about just the hard skills, accounting and everything that is related to, by the way, the basic skills. You were talking about what saved business and economy, and Paul said it was the ability to predict the future solutions when COVID struck us. I would say it was the ability to sit down and think in cold terms when the whole world was falling apart. And these people working in Excels and dealing with numbers, they were the core of the stability at that time. They were not only thinking about how to calculate the future businesses, but they were trying to figure out how to make sure that the invoices are being paid. So there is the constant flow of the economy, no matter what happens. And this is what we're trying to make sure that we incorporate into the upskilling and reskilling. Hard, but also soft skills, how to manage yourself and the business in the times of hardship.
Thank you so much, Paweł, for joining us and sharing your perspective. Let us now move on to Ms. Barbara Misterska-Dragan, President of PIBR. From perspective of audits and on finance in our country, and also the advisory services in Poland, we are talking about raising the qualifications and reskilling and upskilling. Let's get questions to Barbara. How allowing the people in advisory and audit services to fully use the potential of new technologies and enabling them to thrive in the digital area will benefit the Polish economy. So how this can help to benefit Polish economy if we upskill and reskill the auditors and people dealing with...
Dziękuję bardzo. Szanowni Państwo, witam serdecznie. Chciałabym na początku podziękować za zaproszenie mnie do udziału w dzisiejszej dyskusji, której się zaszczycona, że mogę być tu w tym miejscu. Jak również serdecznie gratuluję dziesięciolecia CIMie, dziesięciolecia naszemu partnerowi, z którym nawiązaliśmy współpracę. Życzę dużo szczęścia, dużo sukcesów i konsekwencji w realizacji celów. A teraz przechodząc do zadanego mi pytania, chciałam na początku powiedzieć i przypomnieć w zasadzie, że biegły rewident jest ekspertem, jest zawodem publicznego zaufania. Działam w interesie publicznym, w swoim pracy kieruje się etyką zawodową, standardami wykonywania zawodu. Podnoszenie kwalifikacji zawodowych, ustawiczne uczenie się jest wpojone już w nas kręgosłup i moralny, i etyczny, i zawodowy. Zadaniem naszej organizacji jest wspieranie członków w podnoszeniu kwalifikacji, doskonaleniu jakości, po to, żeby sprostać potrzebom, które wynikają z dynamicznego, widocznego otoczenia gospodarczego i społecznego. Ta dynamika zmian, jaka nas otacza, jest wyzwaniem dla audytu i dla całej profesji biegłych rewidentów. Wydarzenia związane z COVID-em, z pandemią przyspieszyły decyzje dotyczące innowacji właśnie w zakresie technologii, badania i automatyzacji procesów audytowych. Wynikiem tego są działania, które zmierzają do wykorzystania automatycznych narzędzi i technik przy przeprowadzaniu procedur badania. Cyfryzacja, rosnący zakres wykorzystania technologii informatycznych powoduje, że staje się prawie możliwe bieżące analizowanie informacji finansowej w firmie, identyfikacja ryzyk związanych z cyberbezpieczeństwem i oszustwami cyfrowymi. W obecnej rzeczywistości zdalnej komunikacji coraz większego znaczenia nabywają również umiejętności komunikacyjne, o czym już wspomniano wcześniej, wspomnieli moi przedmówcy. Podniesienie tych kompetencji zarówno twardych, szczególnie właśnie w zakresie nowych technologii, na przykład blockchain, jak i w zakresie komunikacji przełoży się na podniesienie jakości usług. Podniesienie jakości usług przyczyni się do podniesienia wiarygodności informacji finansowej, jak również informacji niefinansowej. To wszystko będzie miało wpływ na coraz większe bezpieczeństwo obrotu gospodarczego. Rozwój gospodarczy wymaga zapewnienia bezpiecznego obrotu, a na straży tego bezpieczeństwa stoją właśnie biegli rewidenci. Z kolei wiarygodna informacja to klucz do rozwoju gospodarki. Jej wzrost stawia też nowe wyzwania przed biegłymi rewidentami. Dlatego można powiedzieć, że wyposażenie biegłego rewidenta w tą nową technologię daje mu możliwość przekazania wymiernych korzyści polskiej gospodarce. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing your perspective. Those of you joining, you know that you could use the translation service via Zoom, so I hope you were able also to hear in English language. So obviously, Barbara, thank you so much for our cooperation, and we are now investing heavily in the ESG space and also working on to make sure our members are becoming leaders in ESG going forward. So thanks so much for being with us on this journey. Given the kind of time is ticking, let's move on to our next panelist, Professor Krzysztof Kozłowski from Warsaw School of Economics. We're still talking about investing in skilled talent and the right competencies. And obviously, we had a pleasure to take part in the recent Forum Rachunkowości, the Forum of Accountancy event you organized. And one of the observations that was shared was that there is a conflict between the need to acquire in the course of academic education broad, more general knowledge and critical thinking skills. And the participants from the business community, they say that this is very important also for the graduates to have detailed professional knowledge. So there is a little bit of conflict in what academia is trying to achieve and what the business is expecting from the academy. So what is the solution to that, and what are those right competencies from your perspective?
First and foremost, congratulations on 10 years of CIMA in Poland. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to celebrate this moment. And thank you very much for inviting us here. It's a pleasure to cooperate with such open-minded partners. And I believe that that in the center of the answer to your question should be open-mindedness. What we see depends not only on what we are looking at, but most importantly on what we have been taught and what we have learned to notice. And we have to acknowledge, we have to understand that we are actually learning and teaching others throughout the rest of their lives. This is a ceaseless process. And eventually we have to also understand that operating only in terms of skills, hard skills, soft skills, sets us in a ways that we'll never win. It's always about conversation. It's always about understanding other people. It's always about combining talents. When students come to Warsaw School of Economics, we try not to think about them in terms of, okay, what skills we have to give them so they will meet the demand of the market in 5 years. when they are coming to us, we are trying to think, okay, what can we make to help them to create the labor market in 5 years, to develop this market. And that's why I'm actually very happy to be here with the organization that also has similar goals. It's not just to accept what is going on around you, it's about getting involved in it, investing in developing it, and strengthening the environment for mutual understanding. Just to introduce those who are listening to us, just before the event, we were talking about new project of CIMA that invites people from absolutely outside of the classical accountant environment to participate, to come into the process, even without all those established, expected requirements. It means diploma and so on and so forth. Just learn what you need to make your business, to make your life better, to be more efficient. This is actually exactly the same thing we do at the university. And this is, I believe, what we should expect from effective education, regardless of the level. In the end, we are talking about people, we are talking about human beings. And if we accept that there are multitudes of talents, and if we accept that the challenge is to notice how to combine them, how to help them bloom, and not only think about the future, because future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed, as some cyberpunk fans have already noticed many, many years ago, we'll find the key to the solution. We'll find the solution, which is to listen to one another, to sit at the table when the world is crumbling down, when this world is going down, and not to be afraid of cracks in the reality around you that's arrived, but look through these cracks into the core of the process and try to figure out how an expert in finance, how an architect, how a modern designer can work together to turn this into an opportunity. And this is what we believe a proper executive education should be all about. This is what we believe the management or economic education should be all about. But in essence, this is what the education as such, regardless of the level, should be about. To listen to the others, to get into interactions, and to help one another to show the best what we can expect. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Kowalski, for sharing your perspective. So we went through the round of questions. We now have a little bit the second round, let's call it, and this will be open to anyone on the panel. But I assume that we heard from James that he might be not staying with us for the entire event. So I will give a chance to James to answer to that question first. But obviously, we went through many different perspectives, and we discussed what's required and how we can upskill and reskill potentially talents in Poland to make the economy recover, flourish going forward. What are the main areas? We touched it on a strategic level, let's call it, but let's dive a little bit deeper into the process. And let's have a thought about it and share our thoughts with the audience. I'm trying to assess and to give some advice, as many other participants, members, students, our stakeholders, they might also be looking for ways on how to do those things best, how to engage all the stakeholders, and how to achieve the desired outcome. We've been doing that in bits and pieces with every organization participating in the panel today. But from your perspective, and I will turn to James. James, what would you say would be the best approach to make it a successful journey in terms of providing the right talent and competencies for Poland?
Thanks very much. I think the kind of two main lines of argument to answer your question have already been discussed in this panel session. I think you need a combination of communication and an open two-way set of communication between those organizations, those businesses that are looking to upskill and to find new talent and new skills for the future, and those in the workforce who are seeking to develop those skills, and have an iterative conversation about what it is that people need to develop. And I mean, to the point about it's not all about university education, absolutely, it's not all about university education. It's fantastic to hear some of the initiatives that have already been talked about by other panel members in order to increase and enhance technical education and other routes to upskilling and reskilling. It's not just about the classical higher education route. I completely agree. The other thing I think is innovation and about trying new things. And Pavel made the point earlier that Poland is not great at innovating, but it is great at improving. You know, it depends on your dictionary definition of innovation, but I think that is innovation. You are taking something and you are making it better, and you are making it better suited to the demands that you are currently facing and predicting what you will face in the future. And I think that's really important as well. It's about predicting what you need in the future, making the best use of the tools that you have. And as we're demonstrating on this call, the fact that we are now going to be, I think, for the long foreseeable future in a hybrid space, provides you with new opportunities and new ways to be able to do that, that we weren't able to really embrace 18, 19, 24 months ago. I think Paul, in his opening remarks, noted that we aren't going to be in a post-COVID age. And I think in terms of hybrid working and the ability to harness the potential of this sort of technology, this is here to stay, and long may that continue, because I think it does open a number of opportunities to bring in different people, different expertise, and deliver that upskilling in a different way.
Thank you so much, James. So communication, innovation, as something already mentioned by James, what are the other best ways of doing that? Paul?
Well, certainly collaboration and with other professions and with other learning providers and so on. I talked about how we as management accountants were at the center of the storm in terms of being there to help steer companies through the pandemic. But we've also recognized that we need to adapt our education and open up our qualification to others. And picking up on what Christoph said and also what Paul said about, not everybody needs to go to university anymore, and we certainly endorse that. So, our qualification is open to people, as from school leavers, that's for sure. But we've also unpacked our qualification and we've modularized our qualification so that other professions can come in and do essential modules that will help them to be future financial leaders as well. And to pick up on what Christoph said, in terms of expanding on what we were discussing earlier, when it comes to reporting on ESG, environmental, society, and governance aspects, which is going to become increasingly important in future, we as management accountants can't do this on our own. We have to collaborate with engineers, with architects, with human resources, and so on, in order to make sure that that data is correct, verifiable, and so on.
Thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your perspective on this. That would give space for anyone else from the panel to add something.
Trust between governments, between companies and universities, academia, the whole educational system, that together we can find new ways how to prepare for what is not known in future, that we cannot really 100% predict, and kind of mindfulness of our needs of people, but also companies and the whole environment.
Christoph?
Add something new, but I believe the most important issue here is partnership. I believe in partnerships. I believe that partnerships are the key to the future. And this is what the university may give. This is what other learning environments may give. If we understand that university or school or anything else is not just an ivory tower of knowledge anymore, but knowledge is out there, and we have to acknowledge that we may share it and develop it together, then I believe we are on a good track.
Thank you so much. And this will give us space for participants online to also to add their perspectives on. Yes, Barbara?
Bardzo dziękuję. Bardzo się cieszę, że mam możliwość zabrania głosu, bo to tak trudno, jak pewnie jest w studiu, się przebić przez tak cudowne, wspaniałe autorytety. Ponieważ ja akurat reprezentuję profesję biegłego rewidenta, czy ta nasza kreatywność w tworzeniu raportów, o których wspomnieli SG, no nie istnieje. My jesteśmy po tej drugiej stronie barykady, my oceniamy te raporty, to znaczy, że też powinniśmy się znać na tym, co będzie przygotowane przez autorów raportów w zakresie tematyki społeczeństwa, klimatu, czyli środowiska, no i ładu korporacyjnego. Ale chciałam się odnieść tutaj do kwestii, jak działać, co zrobić. Więc naszym zdaniem również bardzo ważny jest dialog. I tutaj popieramy w zupełności wszystkie wypowiedzi, które były przede mną. No, łącząc się z panem profesorem Kozłowskim, bo uczestniczyliśmy w forum rachunkowości, gdy dyskusja była na ten temat, ten dialog, który powinien być między organizacjami, takimi między innymi jak nasza organizacja Polska jest dla biegłych rewidentów, między regulatorami i regulatorami uczelniami i biznesem. I to jest bezwzględnie, daje to bardzo fajne korzyści, ponieważ wszyscy dyskutujemy o tym, jakie talenty są potrzebne, jakie zasoby, jakie kompetencje powinny posiadać absolwenci wyższych uczelni, na które czeka biznes, na które czekamy między innymi my biegli rewidenci jako profesja, która ma niezwykłe potrzeby w tym zakresie. Czyli dla nas uwolnienie potencjału kraju i jego rozwój wymagać będzie właśnie stworzenia kompetentnych, wykwalifikowanych zasobów, w tym biegłych rewidentów. Zdajemy sobie sprawę, że ten dialog, który jest tak kluczowy, który pozwala nam na osiągnięcie wspólnie celów, jest również ważny między organizacjami. Tutaj chciałam podkreślić właśnie naszą współpracę pomiędzy CIMA i SPA. Myśmy rozpoczęli tę współpracę i bardzo dziękuję za tę inicjatywę. Ta nasza współpraca jest przykładem tego budowania dobrych relacji, szukania doskonaleń w profesji. Ale jeszcze jednym chciałam podkreślić, taki przykład dialogu, który rozwinęliśmy ostatnio, jest realizacja projektu, który prowadzi również Ministerstwo Finansów, czyli regulator w zakresie uprawnienia dostępu do udostępnienia, czy możliwości udostępnienia zawodu dla biegłych rewidentów. Także naszym zdaniem dialog, komunikacja, wymiana doświadczeń i szukanie jak najlepszych rozwiązań, żeby te kompetencje, umiejętności były trafione, były kompetencjami, umiejętnościami przyszłości. Także dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's a pleasure working with you, and we look forward to taking our partnerships to the next level. We have a question from participant. I think it's a chance for one question given the time. The question is from Mr. or Mrs. Irfan Megani. It is said that data mining is going to be the next oil engine leading to the new revolution. So the data mining as the next oil engine. What is CIMA's take on upskilling our members in the field of data analytics, data science, predictive and cognitive techniques? Most importantly, conducting these courses with a low-cost framework. Thank you for taking up the question. Paul, would you like to?
I guess that's a question for me. Absolutely spot on. This is something that we are embracing. Data mining is extremely important to us. We have to embrace data analytics. We have to embrace data scientists. We have to collaborate with them. We hope that we're going to bring data science into our membership. But also, it's already a key part of our syllabus and a key part of our competency framework. And our competency framework, it can be applied to lots of disciplines. And it's something that I encourage people to look at. You can see it on our website. And also coming back again to the all-important ESG question and problem. It's absolutely imperative. Again, we didn't invent ESG as an institute, but we are responding to it. And I agree totally with the questioner that data and the verifiable data and data that we can trust as well, as my fellow panelists have been saying this afternoon, is absolutely imperative going forward.
Thank you so much for your question. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Pavel, Barbara, James, Christoph, Agnieszka. It's never enough time to go through everything, but we'll continue that dialogue. We'll continue that cooperation. We look forward to taking our partnerships with every single partner to the next level, and we have ambition to make it a success. So please stay tuned for more. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.